Hello, Jimmy here, and if you're new to the channel, I am an archaeologist and historical reenactor, and I am currently wearing my lovely red tunic from old craft wool, which is made by some wonderful people, and I'll link to them in the description. And it's been a while since we've done a bad telly video, isn't it? We haven't done a TV video or a film video since maybe The Northman? Was that the last time we did a video about film and TV? But I am excited to announce that there is a new TV show coming out. Yay! Set in the 11th century. Ooh. And it will be a BBC and CBS joint venture, and it's called King and Conqueror. It's about Harold Godwinson and William the Conqueror and his conquest of England in 1066. And some photos have come out of it. Oh boy, have photos come out of it. And I was hoping to do this video sight unseen, but over York Viking Festival some people came up to me with photos of it already out on their phones and showed me them. So let's jump in. Generally, if you have seen any of my other videos, you'll know that the complaints that I and almost every other historical costume enthusiast and maker and researcher has is there's not enough colour. There's never enough colour. Right now I am dressed as a middling sort of the early medieval period. I've got a red tunic on. It's not like deep scarlet. It looks darker on camera than it is in real life. I've got some hose in undyed wool, which I'm going to attempt to get. There you go. These are my Mark II footy hose with feet, integral feet. Same pattern as my pink ones in a sort of undyed wool that's just had a whisper of woad blue popped onto them from an exhausted woad vat. And I'm dressed as like a middling dude. I'm not a prince. I'm not a duke. I'm not a knight. I'm probably a nobody in the historical sense, you know, but this is one of the big complaints is there's never enough colour. Why is everybody wearing black? Why is everybody wearing unachievable chemical black in an age where colour was ubiquitous in clothing, where everybody was wearing reds and yellows and pinks and browns and beiges, a riot of sort of reds and yellows of various shades and hues, because they were the easiest colours to make with the plant dyes available in Europe at the time. Madder root and with weld, with onion skins, for goodness sake. You know, it's so easy to make yellows and reds. There's no excuse to not have colour. And in particular at a time where the nobility was expected to wear colour. There were people making laws restricting the use of colour in the medieval period right the way through it, because the nobility needed to say, colour is our thing. We wear colour. We're special. So, hopefully, I've found a few more photos. We'll have a look at King and Conqueror and see some colour. I'm hoping that because this is Normans v Saxons, that we're going to have some interesting variation in the costuming between the two sort of cultures that we're going to see. Hoping we're going to see some interesting women's kit as well, which would be nice. So let's jump in and see what we've got. So I'm using, for my source of these images, I'm using the BBC's announcement page of this, which basically has slightly more high-res images, and they're all courtesy of Lilia Johns, by the way. Thank you, Lilia Johns, for these photos from set. So the first image that we've got is William, Duke of Normandy, played by Nikolaj Coster-Waldau, his spectacular jaw and moustache, and Harold, Earl of Wessex, who is played by James Norton, who looks very sad and does not have a moustache. I'm fairly sure moustaches were fashionable in Anglo-Saxon England at this point, but that's okay. But they are both incredibly bland. What incredibly bland costumes they are in. So we've got a bishop in the background. I don't know if that's meant to be Bishop Odo, but whatever. So I think this is meant to represent the scene in Harold and William's relationship where Harold swears an oath to William. There's a story that that Harold is shipwrecked as a younger man, ends up in Normandy. Duke William helps him, rescues him. They go hunting, they snack, they chat, you know, they vibe. And Harold then swears an oath to William, And there are various claims of what the oath is. There's a claim that it's an oath of fealty. There's a claim that it's an oath of that he will never try to claim the throne of England, which William can then use as an excuse to invade, obviously in 1066. It's all very interesting, and most of the material that we have for this has a Norman bias to it, so we don't actually know if this really happened. But the way it's represented, and the most sensible way it's represented, is on the Bayeux tapestry. And the Bayeux tapestry is not a tapestry, it's an embroidery. But the Bayeux embroidery shows Harold swearing on holy relics. He's touching a reliquary, he's touching a saint's bones, basically, in a church or a cathedral. And that makes sense. That is how you swear things. As an 11th century Northern European Catholic nobleman, you swear on the bones of a saint, you swear on a relic. If it's this important, you swear on a relic. This looks kind of more like a hand-fasting ceremony, so it kind of looks like we're seeing an 11th century... 11th century same-sex marriage would be pretty dang progressive, so it's interesting the way that they've chosen to show this. They're not really dressed for this. If you're swearing a solemn oath in a church or cathedral, especially if there's a bishop behind you who is wearing full bishop's regalia, like the full cloth of gold, the mitre, well, it's a hot air balloon, but it's meant to be a bishop's mitre, the full cloth of gold rig, you'd expect these two noblemen, these two wealthy noblemen, both of whom will go on to claim the throne of England, to at least be wearing a pop of colour. Like, you'd expect something. William is wearing what looks like a kind of cloaky caftany thing. It almost looks like those 17th century long coats without like solid sleeves. It's really bizarre, and it's clasped at the neck. And people, like, costume designers love a neck clasp, right? They love a neck clasp. That's not how men fix their cloaks in this period. That is not how Northwestern European men's cloaks are fastened. They are fastened with a single brooch or with a tie at the shoulder. They're not clasped at the neck. A century before this, the two brooch thing is a very femme way to dress as a Norse woman. The two tortoise brooches is like a feminine fashion statement. So this is not how that works. Under that, he's wearing what looks like a faded black cotton pirate shirt with the weird neck laces, the laces at the neck that you get in a costume shirt. Harold has got a really long belt, and there is a fetish for belts and for being tied up with long belts, and that is fine if that's your kink. But what he is wearing is not a fashionable belt of the 11th century. A fashionable belt of the 11th century is short. It's probably an inch wide, max, like 25mm width. He's got belt mounts on it that kind of look like the Roman military belt mounts of 1,000 years earlier. And he's got the really long belt with the big knot in it that drapes down. That's not an 11th century thing, that's a much later fashion. The bishop's mitre looks silly. It looks silly. This is an 11th century, 12th century probably, depiction of a bishop's mitre in France. Doesn't look like that, does it? Weird. Weird, that. It's a crown. What they've done here is they've got a crown. They've got a crown without spikies, and then they've put a big balloon of fabric on the top of it, stiffened fabric. And that's not what a bishop's mitre is in this period. A bishop's mitre in this period, A, is made of linen, B is much shorter than this, and C is either going to be round, just like rond, not chef's hat, round, or conical. We still have conical mitres in the 11th century. The bishop's mitre goes through an astonishing evolution and development, and I'm going to post a couple of interesting articles about it in the description, but this doesn't look... It's already bad, is what I'm saying. It's already bad. Also, brown leather jerkin that Harold is wearing. That is strikingly similar to the battle jerkins worn by British Empire and Commonwealth troops in the First and Second World Wars. Not good. What have we got next? So next... Harold, Earl of Wessex. Oh my god, he looks dreadful. That's a nice sword. That's a nice sword pommel, though. Look at that sword pommel. Okay. So there is officially one nice piece of kit in this picture, and that is that sword pommel. I like that sword pommel. That's a handsome piece of kit. I really like that. That is an appropriate, I think, shape for the period. Let's crack out the Peterson typology, which I have on my hard drive at all times, in case I need to check swords. Let's just have a look at the Peterson sword pommel typology, and we're going to go down to the 11th century. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, this is, I think, arguably either a type L or a type Z, which is an evolution of the type L. Yeah, I would say that's probably a type L, isn't it, guys? So a type L is a bit early, but, you know, swords were passed down generationally, so we can accept that. It is a nice sword pommel from the look of it. It's at least meant to look like potentially silver or silver gilt. We know that gilt sword pommels were very popular, so maybe for an earl who is currently wearing a crown, he's wearing his coronet, maybe gilt would have been more appropriate, but the wrap looks like it's meant to be gold wrapping on the grip, so that's really good. Everything else in this looks horrific. Everything in this looks awful. Look at what he's wearing for a start. We're going to start with Harold, Earl of Wessex, an English nobleman, and he isn't wearing a scrap of steel. He isn't wearing a scrap of armour. Like, none of this is effective armour for the period. Bear in mind, he's going to be facing archers, he's going to be facing the great big two-handed Dane axes of Norman infantrymen, he's going to be facing cavalrymen riding him down with spears. He's not wearing any mail. Why isn't there a mail shirt on this man? He should be wearing a mail shirt. In the Bayeux Tapestry, everybody is wearing mail. Everybody is mailed up. Everyone is wearing their full 11th century battle rattle. Like, everyone is encased in metal. He's got this weird, like, it's pathetic looking padding on the sleeves. I think it's meant to look like quilted armour, but it doesn't look like quilted armour. He's got what looks like looks like maybe 2 or 3 layers of leather. Why is he wearing leather? He can afford mail. If the men behind him have got mail on, which we'll get to, why isn't he wearing mail? It is the single most popular and most effective form of armour for the combat he's going to be facing in the period. Like, wear a bit of leather underneath it, but mail shirt. Like a Bernie, a glittering mail shirt. He is going to be a king. He is a king. Like, he is heir presumptive to a throne. He should be wearing actual armour to go with that sword. Like, and the way that there are going to be people who are commenting on this who are like, leather's good for armour. Like, yeah, leather's good for armour. Look at this leather. Just look at it. Don't look at me. Look at this leather that's sewn with like a stitch an inch. A couple of stitches every 2 inches that are 2 inches wide is not how you sew effective leather armour. That's not how it works. Look at a 17th century buff coat, and the most middling sort of buff coat is better made than this armour. This is dreadful. To say nothing of the weird pop rivets and the strange shoulder strapping that's holding it together. Like, this is not... It's not good. Doesn't look like there's much mobility either, because those shoulders are really wide, like the super wide shoulders on that armour are going to restrict his movement. His pony is cute, and it's dressed like an armadillo. That's nice. Who doesn't love an armadillo? I'm not sure why that horse is dressed like that. That's really bizarre. I don't know where they got that from. It's weird. There's so much riveted leather everywhere in this shot. The guys behind... they look like they're carrying round shields, and that's fun to see, because traditionally the kind of battlefield distinction between the Normans and the Saxons, if you're at a reenactment, will be Saxons with round shields, Normans with kite shields. In the period, basically kite shields were being adopted, sort of Europe-wide, so it's not really, unless you're on the poorer end of the spectrum and you're a member of the Anglo-Saxon Fyrd, if you're a Fyrd man, then yes, bring a round shield, but kite shields were being used as well. The dude at the back looks like... the dude right in the back looks like a British squaddy circa 2001, with like his helmet that's just slightly too big for his head. Trying to, like, drink a cup of tea and be photographed in a big hat that's like, oh, hi, governor! Like, he just looks so silly. I'm so sorry that they made you wear that, whoever you are. Yeah, everybody looks awful in this shot. The guys in the background are wearing a weird combination. The shoulder pieces on their armour are the shoulder parts of Roman chainmail. So Roman mail, Roman loricae. That is what those are. Those are about 800 years out of date at this point in terms of armour. It looks like they've also got mail across their tummies and then maybe fabric above that? Very bizarre. I mean, a mail shirt is such a simple thing, right? It's just links of metal. Like, there are pictures of me a few weeks ago wearing a more appropriate set of armour than this, with an anachronistic helmet, but my armour is much better than this. Again, the weird long gauntlets look strange. Oh, and they've got leather vambraces underneath. Why do you insist on bits of leather? Why? Mail shirts can be done on the cheap. Like, mail shirts can be done on the cheap. How much did this leather cost you on the Gold Hawk Road? And then you had to get someone to make all this for you. Like, I shop on the Gold Hawk Road in London. I know where the producers shop. I know where the casting... I know where costume and wardrobe get their leather in the UK. And I know that you could have hired mail shirts for these men cheaper than you got these made. If these were off the rack, there are mail shirts in Angels. Don't pretend like there aren't. And they look better than this. I would be less aggrieved if they were wearing zinc butted mail shirts, because at least they'd be wearing mail shirts. 0 out of 10. Those helmets, atrocious. Like, I'm pretty sure those helmets are from Life of Brian. Like, I'm like 7 out of 10 that this is the People's Front of Judea's crack suicide team. Extremely inappropriate scene. Alright. Let's cool it, let's scroll. William, Duke of Normandy. Nikolaj Coster-Waldau. Excellent. Excellent hair. Terrible costume. Looks dreadful. Where is the colour? There is no colour here. Is that faded blue? Are we using the same colour palette as Vikings after Season 1? I think we are, aren't we? Ooh, he's got a nice sword, hasn't he? Let's crack out the Peterson typology again and see what that sword looks like, because that is a big old round pommel. So I feel like that is a little bit late. Yeah. I think that's a little bit late. That's a bit of a late sword for this period. That's okay, I guess. Can't have everything. It's a lovely sword, it's just a little bit late for the period. Also, be nice if he was wearing it on a baldric rather than just carrying it loose in a loose scabbard, which ideally would be in a baldric with a distribution system. Again, the belt is too long. What is the belt missing? That's right, a strap end. Strap ends or belt ends were ubiquitous in the period. They are a really small, really simple way of showing that you can afford a little bit of luxury, and they also help to stop the belt flapping around as much, and make it a bit easier to fit the belt through a guide or a belt keeper. Ooh, I've gone a little bit dark, haven't I? Goodness me. Let's drop that shutter speed a little. I'll see the front of my shotgun mic. Why not? The belt's also too wide, like I say, inch wide belt, because that's how wide belts were in the period. He's wearing 2 belts for some reason, but neither of them is a sword belt, so that's weird. His cloak has got a weird, like, underboob strapping. That seems just uncomfortable. It goes underneath the armpits when it would be much easier and more practical to just close it with a single brooch. It's also far too long. Like, that is an absurdly long cloak. It's dragging on the floor. And if this is meant to be a boat cloak, like, not really a thing as far as we can tell in the period, and 18th century boat cloaks don't really drag on the floor. Why would you want your woolen cloak dragging in salt? Doesn't make much sense. If I crank the brightness right the way up, which I'm going to have to see any detail in these costumes because they're so bleeding dark. He's wearing what look like hilarious falconry gloves, and a weird tunic. Like, the tunic's got a weird design woven into it, and I think this is this obsession with texture in wardrobe at the minute. Like, costuming is obsessed with textures, and if you look at older productions and older films, yeah, there's texture, but the texture is real, it's true to life. People are wearing suits, and they're wearing dresses that would have been worn in the 1950s and 60s in films from those periods. And this is just bizarre. Like, I don't get why he's dressed like that. It looks bad. His weird off-white coat is very strange. And 2 of the 3 visible layers are open at the front, which seems odd considering it's clear he's just been on a boat journey. No, I think I can see clasps closing the weird blue tunic-y thing, but like, solid front. Seams are at the sides. Keeps your chest warm. Practical, no? Everybody behind him looks dreadful. Hoodies. Why are they wearing hoodies? They're not cloaks. They're hoodies. They look terrible. Everybody in this looks awful so far. Anyway, who do we have next? Next we have Luther Ford as Tostig and Emily Beecham as Edith Swanneck. Yeah, alright, let's see what we got. Okay, Edith is dressed better than any of the men have been so far. It looks like a fur-lined kind of sleeveless overdress, which is a bit of an odd choice. There's a lot of lacing on a dress that in the 11th century should probably not have all of that lacing down the front. That's a bit later. Like, I can see this as a 14th century option, but not as an 11th century option. Big, long, dangly earrings of a type that I don't think are provenanced in the period. The belt is a nice belt. Too long, probably, but it's a nice belt. Look how narrow it is. That's about an inch wide, isn't it? If that. That's lovely. Mounts that don't look out of place. I think they're diamond-shaped holes in those mounts. I think those might be from one of the bigger reenactment websites. I think I've seen those for sale. It's not an unpleasant-looking belt. Tinned, hammered, coppered tankards are an interesting choice. Perhaps pottery for your next production. Tostig doesn't... I mean, he looks great, it's Luther Ford, but his costuming looks weird. Why has he got wrist straps? Is this a kink night? Is this a kink night that we're at? It's a weird choice. And then the like Soviet winter gear, quilted sleeves, and then what looks like Hessian type material at the top. Like, that looks like Hessian, right? That's like sacking material. On again, a nobleman, and everybody is wearing like drab. Everybody is in khaki. Everybody is wearing like jungle green in this scene. It's very, very bizarre. Also, peep the hoodie on the right. Ugh. How do you make that texture in the 11th century, costume people? How do we do that? How is that achieved? So, everybody so far isn't impressing me. Oh, nice big CGI fireplace there. Doesn't look particularly 11th century. Bit big. Bit more 13th century in my mind. Odo, played by Leo Legrand. That is Odo. That is Odo in the first picture. Okay, so that's Bishop Odo in the first picture, who notoriously goes to battle with William of Normandy in 1066. And he is like half dressed as a bishop. He's like wearing a grey thing, like a grey tunic, so I feel like he's meant to look monastic. And then he's got a chasuble? Question mark? I love the idea that he's just wearing his chasuble to show that he's a bishop. Like, of all the things that he could be wearing, shall I put on my hat of office that has been newly made into a thing that I get to wear to show my office? No, I'll just pop my chasuble on over a grey tunic to go to dinner with Matilda and Baldwin. So this is a noble dinner with a high-level ecclesiastical officer. The hair is weird. Right, Matilda's hair is weird. Do we see that in the previous scene? Yeah, there's a lot of like little pigtails going down at the sides. And I'm not sure if that's something we see in depictions of women from the 11th century. Specialists feel free to correct me, but I'm not sure that that's really something we see depicted particularly. And also, no headgear so far. Like, we would expect to see headscarves on these women. These are all Christian women of the northern Europe. Like, Christian women wear head coverings in the 11th century. They wear headscarves. They wear wimples, often decorated with, like, gold bands. This isn't how women dressed. This is bizarre. Yeah, the lack of head coverings has just struck me. None of the women so far are wearing a head covering. That's really weird. That's such a weird choice. And that would add so much of a period look to literally just like a rectangle of wool gauze or of linen or of silk just over the head held in place with a little band. That would add so much of a period look to this, and that's a shame that it's missing. Baldwin looks stupid. What are you wearing? That's a coat. That's lapels. That is lapels with a collar, and that is not 11th century. Shame on you for putting him in that. That is a bizarre quilted. Lots of quilting. Ugh, Abby. Right, Harold, Earl of Wessex, this one says, James Norton, and Margaret, played by Indy Lewis, who is wearing a head covering. At last, we have a head covering. Okay, so Indy Lewis in this shot is wearing just like a simple wimple, held in place with a band of gold. Kind of nice. The wimple is dyed the same colour as her dress. Like, I think the majority of depictions show wimples in white and undyed colours, but we have evidence of women's headgear being dyed in the early medieval period, so, like, yeah. And then the pigtails again going down. It's just not a thing. There's that nice sword. No, that's a different sword. This is a different sword. This is a nice sword. So this is an older sword. No, we're going to talk about the rest of Indy Lewis's costume first. She's wearing what looks like a weird, I would say impossible for the period, silk or silk-like fabric with a standing collar and false lacing down the front, which is a bizarre thing to put somebody in. That's a weird choice. Here are some women from the 11th century. Cost you a lot less, wouldn't it? What do we got here? Right, sword. It's a nice sword. It's an Anglo-Saxon sword. It's much earlier than this. I placed this around like the 7th century, maybe the 8th century. I'm not an expert. It's got lovely gold fittings. It's got what looks like horn clamped between the pommel cap and the handguard. Plates riveted. And I can believe that there's garnet, or at least false garnet, in between. I don't like to name names, but it's really nice. So, considering it looks really nice, I wonder if he was involved in this. That is a nice. Unfortunately, I think he should be holding a scepter and an orb, not a sword. I don't think that holding a sword is appropriate for this appears to be a coronation. For a coronation. In fact, if we look at the Bayer tapestry, there is, I believe... Yeah, here we go. Oh no, it is Harold. It's Harold. Quite clearly holding the orb in his left hand and the scepter in his right hand, with swords being held up towards him, possibly as a sign of fealty. Yeah. Cool. He's also wearing a tunic and a cloak, not whatever this weird fake ermine-lined question mark velvet thing is. And he's got another belt. This belt is also, again, slightly too wide for the period, and the fittings don't look early medieval. That's a throne that you might see in any medieval-themed pub. Yeah, he don't look great. He doesn't look like a king. They really tried hard to make him look like a king here, but he just doesn't look regal. Bear in mind that coronation garments of the period would be made of silk, decorated with pearls, decorated with embroidery, dyed a rich colour, maybe like a rich blue or a green, and he's just sat here in his underwear. Basically, he's sat in his underwear. Not good. Not good. The sword, good. only good thing. Right, next. Ooh, battle picture, battle picture. Here we go. Right. This looks terrible. I don't know who he's meant to be fighting. Presumably these are Anglo-Saxons versus Normans, because we've got kite shields and round shields. Wait a minute. Has he got 3 lions on his... He's got 3 lions on his shirt. That is so dumb. I cannot believe that they have put 3 little embossed lions. They're not even embossed, they look like they're a pleat... No, they are. They are embossed in this leather. How are we doing that in the period? Wardrobe, how is that achieved? At least he's wearing mail. At least we've got mail in this scene. It's not great, it's really chunky looking mail, but it's mail, that's fine. He's wearing mail. The black leather all looks terrible. The bishop's mantle, they're like, nah, I don't think so. Doesn't look great. The surco over the mail is later than this, guys. You've got to stop. We know what his face looks like. We can see his face. So it's fine. We don't need additional heraldry. Look at the appliqued lions on the shields. And his shield's got fake planking on it as well, and really chunky, naff-looking stitches. Look how weirdly small that shield is. The dimensions are wrong on those shields, right? Shield makers, like... Tell me, Skelders, those shields have got weird dimensions, right? It's not just me. Tell me it's not just me that thinks those shields are weird proportions. Nice suede boots. Not a thing, again, not a thing. Shoes, should be wearing shoes. I can see the bottom of some more quilted garments and some cheap-looking leather. Looks dreadful. Couple of hand axe on hand axe. Hand axe on hand axe combat. 2 different types of hand axe. There's a bearded axe there. And a non-bearded axe. There is a single cavalryman in the background. That helmet's weird. Look at it with its little, like, at the back. It's got a little... Don't even know what you call that apart from a... It's got a... at the back. Weird choice. Yeah, at least the sleeves are long. At least they've got long sleeves on the mail, which is what's depicted on the Bayeux Tapestry again. But we see chausses. I believe we see chausses in the Bayeux Tapestry. I could be wrong here. I'm going to double check what we see on the tapestry. Okay, no, I don't actually see chausses, and actually the sleeves are short. We have short-sleeved mail depicted on the tapestry, nasal helms, and like it looks like separate legs for the mail shirt, but it's probably just a split mail shirt. So yeah, actually, no, I take it back. Doesn't look good. This scene doesn't look great at all. I'm just going to move on from it. All the shields look cheap. The armour looks anachronistic. Nasal helmet. Unbelted mail shirt. Decent kite shield. Painted designs, not riveted designs. Job done. Not weird suede boots. No. Next. Oh my god, he's wearing lamellar armour. Oh my god, he's wearing lamellar armour. Hey, at least his belt is shorter. Look at the rubberiness of that sword, though. Look at the rubberiness of that sword! Ah! Adorable. Again, weird floopy back on the helmet there. That helmet is such weird shape. Look at the weird shape on that helmet. Does it just completely go down this guy's eyes? Does it go over this dude's eyes? I feel like it does. And is this 2 shots from the same battle? Yeah, it is, isn't it? It is. Yeah. Notoriously cavalry-heavy battle, the Battle of Hastings, so interesting. This looks dreadful. And we're definitely doing the Normans in mail, Saxons not in mail thing, aren't we? We're definitely doing that, even though both sides would have been wearing mail. And look very similar. Oh look, he's got a little crown over his helmet. That's not a thing. Also no nasal, so that we can tell that it's him. And he's got little eyebrows. Like it's trying to be an earlier Saxon helmet from like 300, 400 years previously. That's cute and anachronistic, as is the massive dagger at his waist. So he's finally wearing mail, but he's not wearing much mail. This is clearly not a mail shirt, because there's mail at his waist, well, there's mail at his hips, but then there's none on his upper arms. And he's wearing lamellar armour, which is utterly preposterous. He has got his sword in a baldric, and his belt is shorter and has a belt end on it, but it's chunky and bad. His leather trousers and his massive boots as well. It's so weird. So, the tall boots, guys, we've got to get over it. Like, we're not Carrie Elwes, you know? We don't need them. Oh, it looks dreadful. What else have we got? We've got quilting. We've got leather vambraces, all of which are anachronistic for the period. We've got side-laced leather armour on this dead guy on the ground here. That's a hilarious idea. No. One of the best things about a mail shirt is it doesn't have gaps. There's no seams in it. You don't have to tie it together. So, like, no. No. Yeah, this is appalling. This is appallingly, disappointingly bad. That's it so far. Oh, wow, okay, so that's all we got. Wow. Just by way of comparison, this is how men were depicted as fighting on the Bayeux tapestry of the 11th century. And yeah, it's not perfect, but shoes, hose, mail shirts, shields painted with designs, nasal helms, like helmets with nasal protection on them. Oh, but you won't be able to see his face. I see you, and I raise you, Kingdom of Heaven. Can we just appreciate for a moment that Kingdom of Heaven, for all of its many, many faults, is a film where one of the characters wears a full face covering. Saladin is wearing a nasal helmet, as far as I recall, and I think at one point Orlando Bloom is wearing a nasal helm. I could be wrong. I'm gonna check this. Yes, when he kisses the sword, he's wearing a nasal helm, because he has to turn his face to the side to kiss the sword blade. Yes! Look at that. Be braver. Be braver. Put your protagonist in a nasal helm. Put him in a Norman-style mail shirt with a chin covering, because that is what armour looks like. This shot, actually, this is what armour looks like. This is armour. This is this shot says, I'm wearing armour. He's wearing a sleeved mail shirt with integral mail mitts. Like, this is armour. This is crap, cheap looking costuming. Sorry, but it is. No mercy. It all looks dreadful. Yeah, it all looks dreadful. The only less dreadful, I would say the less dreadful elements so far are the sword pommels that I've seen, Edith Swanneck's belt, if they chopped it, and that's it. There's no colour. No colour. Look at how much colour there is in the Bayeux tapestry. Look at that.
Hello, Editing Jimmy here. You can tell because of the stress. And I've just come to the conclusions that, one, I don't think that the wardrobe designers at any point used the Bayeux tapestry as inspiration for the costumes for this show, relating to the events globally famously depicted in the Bayeux tapestry, the single largest pictorial source of evidence for the fashions of the period that we possess. And secondly, Vinland Saga, an anime, did a better job of costuming this period than King and Conqueror. Like, the anime and the manga did better work costuming this period in terms of nasal helms and in terms of cloaks pinned at the shoulder and tunics and colours than this movie, than this TV series, which is sad, quite frankly. I am available for consultations, BBC, if required, once I've made this cup of tea.
It looks terrible. It looks terrible. The costuming, I'm so sorry, the costuming looks terrible. There's no colour. No colour. Natural fibres. We want colour, we want natural fibres. We basically want a saturation increased version of Robert Eggers' The Northman, is what we want, effectively. And we know it can be done now, so it's very disappointing to see the BBC and CBS taking steps back. In a world where steps are being taken backwards all over the place right now, I kind of hoped that we would see a production where the costuming looked okay. But there we go. I hope you've enjoyed this video at least. I hope you've enjoyed seeing a few interesting pictures from history. I hope that Yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, feel free to like, subscribe, follow me on the Patreon page if you'd like, or go to the Coffee page if you'd like to support the channel financially. There's a new podcast coming out. There's going to be an episode coming out this weekend of Steeped in History, which I will link to. You can also watch it on my YouTube channel, or listen to it on my YouTube channel, and on the podcasts tab you can search for it on Spotify, it's on Apple Music, it's all over the shop. So yeah, Steeped in History, go and check it out. And as ever, diolch yn fawr iawn am wylio, thank you very much for watching, and tan y tro nesa, till the next time, hwyl fawr am y tro, bye bye for now. It's just tunic, belted, strap end, hose, not hard.